I'm Charlie. I'm director, cinematographer of the last film, Sacrifice.
Okay, so if we go in the same order, what was the first seed of the idea of how you came up with? Where did it develop from?
I think the cost of living thing that we did through the Cinema and Social Justice Project, which a colleague and I set up at the York St John University. The idea was that what can film do in terms of social justice questions, that we wanted to demonstrate or prove that film can answer kind of big questions. I think, I'm preaching to the converted, we all kind of know that, but I'm an educator and I was trying to think, how can film speak to things like, for us, social justice? So we chose socioeconomic injustice. Actually, the idea came up about 1.5 years ago, and I was, I guess in a really weird way, totally grateful for such a terrible government, which means the film has a kind of stronger resonance than we ever thought. But yeah, that idea of what kind of big questions can you answer through film?
It was a bit of a stream of consciousness, but I used to get I live in Bradford, and I used to get the mega bus down to London, which meant you could also go halfway on the bus, and then you got off at Midland Parkway, and you got on the train, and then did the rest of it on the train. And I don't know if anybody's been to West Midlands Parkway, but it's the weirdest place. There's a cooling towers, and there's a railway station, and that's it. And that's how it started. And I just let it go from there.
It started. It was during COVID, and me and a friend were literally just going for one of those walks that we all went on during COVID, and I was talking about sort of like VFX and how kind of it always frustrated me in films when people did like text messages and how they came up and stuff like that. And I was just talking to him, and I was like, I want someone to do something more fun. And I was like, we could just be walking, and our speech could be replaced with speech bubbles or something like that. And then it started from there, and kind of thought about what kind of film would be fun where you replace the dialogue with speech bubbles, and doing something kind of about fate and predetermination seemed fairly fitting.
Oh, me. My grandma had dementia, so I kind of wanted to do something about that, but I wanted it to do it about the difficulties of caring for somebody with dementia, not specifically the illness, and what you could do, I guess, to help, or I don't know, in that situation. And then I saw the memory boxes, and I just thought, let's put something together. So it's kind of a love letter to my grandma, I guess.
Yeah, my dad has dementia as well, so certainly empathy with that.
Yeah.
And what was with your film?
Oh yeah, the idea for my film really came about because I was talking with lots of friends who were all furloughed, and I didn't get furloughed. Basically, couldn't get any support off government whatsoever, and they just didn't seem to realise that there was millions of people who were losing their businesses and just basically had no livelihood because they obviously were forced to close down, etc. And they just seemed to be completely oblivious that because they were sitting at home getting all this free money, and yeah, that was kind of inspired me to make it.
And so, I suppose if we start here and go this way. So, what was the obstacles and the things that came out of the film that you were most happy with?
What, in terms of like the production and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, it was a bit of a disaster trying to make the whole thing. Took about a year, mainly due to obviously lockdown restrictions in the beginning of it, and then weather, because bizarrely we filmed the first bit with the drone and it was all nice grey, moody, typical England. That's what I wanted for the look. And then when we went back to do like the main shoot, like the sun was blazing. Literally, it was like Spain or something. And then every time we went back to film, it was like that. It was just the sun was out, so it just, there was one thing after another. It took ages to do, but then we waited and waited and waited until we got a day when the weather was good, like in terms of grey and grim, and we shot it. So it was just hard to make, mainly because we shot outdoors.
Yeah, with the continuity, and you were
I wanted it to be in a Peak District. I wanted that isolation for the location, so I wasn't prepared to compromise, and I didn't want to compromise on the look by having something that's really sunny when we'd already shot the first day and it was really grim and overcast, because in editing, colour grading, you would not be able to match it.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of the actual production itself, it's quite straightforward. We did it at uni, so we had a lot of resources there. I think we were fortunate that we shot it the week before the whole country locked down, and there was like 40 of us in this tiny 2-bed flat in Didsbury, so that would have never happened. I guess the most difficult part was trying to get the footage afterwards to actually edit it, because we had to get it all from uni, and we weren't allowed to be together, so one of the editors was in France. It was just, that bit was kind of painful, but other than that it was quite straightforward because we had like the uni behind us, fortunately.
Were you trying to do the editing over Zoom and talking
Yeah,
like that,
a lot of
or through links with
Zoom calls and like just writing notes, sending notes, and then that took a while, so then it kind of, once we were allowed out a little bit, we kind of got together and managed to do a big bulk of it, and then it was just fine tuning, which is fine to do separate and very long distance.
Making the speech bubbles was a big hand painting every single one of them, and drawing them was challenging. The weather as well. So we were shooting it in the summer, and it was like, it's going to be, dry and sunny, and it'll be fine. And then like a week earlier, we were like, no, it's going to be pissing it down. So we've got to find a location where we can be covered and not soaked. And then directing the actors was really challenging, because it was like, obviously they're just kind of performing but without words, so that was kind of interesting for them, and how to kind of get their performances in the right spot so they're not sort of like feeling like they're overacting, because we started off and it was very much like how do I do this? So yeah,
it went well.
Thank you. So yeah, that was also another challenge, directing them and keeping the performances nice and subtle and still meaningful.
Challenges. Animation.
It can be
Animation.
like happy things you overcame, as well as doesn't always, either side of the coin.
Well, I come to animation late. Well, as in I'm in my 60s, and I came to animation. I've always drawn, but I never liked the dark. I'm not very good at technology. I'm rubbish at technology, really, but I like drawing, so I've kind of come there by accident. So the whole animation thing, if I knew what was involved, I don't think I would have started it. But now I'm a bit addicted, so it kind of has this upset. And also, kind of like, how do I get this bird from one side of the page to the other? Because I only work on, the whole thing was done on about 5 sheets of A1 paper. So it's just draw, rub out, which is completely crazy. And so some days you think, I've done 5 seconds, or not days, weeks. A week, I've done 5 seconds, and so I took. So there was lots of challenges, and the musician I had never worked with before, and we just met every Wednesday for about 9 months in a coffee shop, and he introduced me to vegan hot chocolate, and we didn't really talk much about the film, but he then made the music. So, there was lots of, it was a bit surprising, the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess similarly it went quite swimmingly. But ours was a kind of research project, so a lot of the footage we saw there, it's all from the Yorkshire Film Archive, so it's all like old cine film and sort of amateur footage and stuff like that. So we had to pay to digitise quite a lot of it so we could actually use it. And then kind of trawling through finding footage in a full archive, it took a very, very long time. And I think the other difficulty was, I came to this, I'm the principal investigator on the project, and it was sort of, I kind of got the ball rolling, I guess. And I came to it with a really strong political ideology, and I think that's pretty clear in the film, where on which side of the coin I come down. But then because we'd commissioned the film from a charity archive that are funded by the lottery and the government, they had to be really careful about their political position. So it was really hard to be like, well, I want it to be really political, and then be like, oh, but we have to be super neutral. And I was like, tough. So that was quite tricky to negotiate that kind of boundary, but I think it worked out.
And so what was the happiest thing? Was it just getting all the footage together, and then once you see it all start putting together, and then all the research
I think so. Yeah, well, that kind of from day one to day finish, that's the best bit. I think it starts as a kind of idea, but then you see it comes together, because I wanted lots of footage about housing crises and homelessness and stuff. I didn't even know what it would look like, so we couldn't storyboard or anything like that, because the whole point is that we're just going to use the kind of principle of the film, in a sense, is like, let's not be doomed to repeat history, but it looks like we kind of are. So I wanted to go into the archives and look for the most miserable stuff they had, which was like, in a sense that I'm trying to learn from the past. But the good stuff was like seeing a film come to life after not being able to really conceive of anything, because we wanted random footage. And the narrative was always pretty clear, so it was like making the images fit to our storyline. But it was great.
What was the happiest bit of your film's journey that, as well as the hot chocolate, I mean, what other bits really gave you pleasure?
Well, sometimes it was the tiniest thing, like just making something work how I could turn it round. So it could be, you know, just so that a wing went round, or the bus went in a different direction. So sometimes it's really tiny moments that were really happy. And I mean, I suppose finishing it, I was quite glad when I got to the end, when I realised that the end was the end. But yeah, I mean,
I suppose all the little details are the magic of the animation, isn't it?
yeah. And also I like charcoal because it has an accidentalness about it, which is what I kind of am interested in a way, not that your DNA is on the screen a bit.
Yeah.
Rather than it's not polished. I mean, there's no editing. I mean, there were editing because I made loads of mistakes, like leaving the lights on when I shouldn't have done, and those kind of, which you can see. So it's a bit crudely done. So yeah, so the fact that I just got from a beginning, a middle to an end, I suppose, is quite happy.
You got the warmth and the character through, you know, you can see like, you know, how hard you pressed on it. It sort of creates the character, and you can feel like, you know, like the heart. Well, I mean, all the films have great heart. You know, obviously you care about the social conditions and coming through that with the charcoal individually, and you know, the love story. You know, your film obviously with the heart, and then yours as well. You know, everyone, they certainly all have films full of heart. I mean, what was the happiest bit that you thought? I mean, with your film, I mean, what that gave you on the journey?
Yeah, I think the happiest thing is that I still quite like it. It's one of those things, you make a film like 2 years ago and you sort of go, oh no, it's a bit shit now. But yeah, I still quite like it, which is a good thing, I guess. Yeah, and it worked because obviously I tried something that I didn't know would work, and I was like, oh yeah, it's, you know, speech bubbles instead of dialogue. I'm like, that's not going to work, it's probably gonna be shit. And then it kind of works and it makes a bit of sense, hopefully.
No, I think it's a really good idea. I know when we showed it at the comedy day at the comedy a few days ago, and, oh, I mean, the love and romance there, lots of people were saying, oh yeah, it's a good idea, you know. I thought pass that on, yeah, people really like it. What about, if not happy, well, you know, it's a sad subject, but what bits?
To be honest, finding the cast, I think I was kind of nervous about that, with it being a student film especially. But Carol at the back over there was absolutely wonderful, and I found the cast that came in had experience with dementia, which I think helped me to direct it, but also, you know, they get it, so it was easier than I thought that was going to be, because it's really hard to watch parts of your own story go on screen, and then it's like, oh well, they didn't do it that way, but I didn't have any of that. It kind of organically came about, and yeah, very, very fortunate for them.
Well,
That was
yes,
the best bit.
there's certainly lots of great performances.
Thank
You did really well.
Well, to her, I didn't do nothing performance-wise.
What would you say about your film?
I kind of agree with kind of what you said. I mean, I've made quite a few shorts over the years, and a lot of them have been made way quicker than this one was made. But most of the time I end up watching them, and I really don't like them after I've made them, because they're not what I had in my head, if you know what I mean. But I'm pleased with the way this one turned out, and I'm really glad the actresses here both stuck with it, because it did drag out. No, short films really shouldn't take a year to make. You know, it should take a few weeks or a month or whatever. But
You find the time though gives you like more of a perspective as you go on. There's little bits that you can kind of be like, oh, maybe that wasn't right when then.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely right to wait, for sure. It all came out perfect the way I had it in my head, probably more than any other film I made. But I don't know, I like the whole process of filmmaking, from writing scripts all the way through to, because I tend to do a bit of a one-man band, if you know what I mean. On that film, there's me, the two actresses, and the guy who did the score, and I did basically every other part of it.
Yeah, I can be quite like that myself. Go on.
Yeah, I just like making films. It's cool.
So what's next? What are you planning? What can we look forward to seeing next?
I honestly don't know, but I do know one thing. I mean, I got into filmmaking through David Lynch, and my first film was trying to copy him, basically, like surreal, dark, weird. But then this film is more of a kind of social. It's based in reality. It's about real issues, and I really want to pursue that way more. Things that are quite hard hitting, really, and controversial in ways, because I think obviously this whole COVID thing's been super controversial. Some people thought, I speak openly, some people thought locking down the country for 2 years was a great idea. I think it was absolutely absurd, and the biggest mistake the country's made ever. But I want to make films about issues such as that, or powerful issues. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, look forward to seeing some of those. What are you working on next? Are you still studying, or have you?
No, I'm done now. So just writing a lot more, I guess. I want to try and tackle a feature. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I'm writing that at the minute. So that's my next thing, I think. I'm like him, like social. I like realness in projects. So I think if you find the humanity of it, no matter what it is, you kind of good to go, because you've got one focal point.
Yeah.
I've got 3 projects that are in post-production at the minute. So there's a little short film which we just kind of made ad hoc up in the Lake District, because a friend of mine was like, do you want to shoot something? I was like, yeah, okay. So we did that, and then like a bit of a longer project which is just in the edit as well, which is like a comedy short about a divorce court kind of thing. The documentary as well, which is, so I put on a cabaret a few months back, which was for performers who had decided to stop performing so they could kind of do their last ever show.
Oh.
So we put the show on, and we made a documentary alongside that. So we're in the edit for that as well, essentially, and then writing a feature and a couple of shorts as well to hopefully make
So
a couple of things. No, just a couple of little bits and bobs, but yeah.
Which was the venue for the cabaret?
We did it at a space called the Empty Space in Media City, so it's a little theatre there, so like 150 seater theatre. But yeah, it was a really nice show actually, because it's something I've always been really interested in like kind of giving up, but like not in like a sad way, and like it's okay to change what you want to do and things like that. So it was really nice. Like a lot of people that I went to drama school with have kind of stopped, and they kind of stopped without like anything, like
the finale. Yeah.
Well, and it stopped in a moment of sadness as well. It was always like, I can't do it anymore, or like I'm just not enjoying it. So I kind of wanted to change that narrative a little bit and give them a platform to go out on a high and kind of end on their own terms doing something they wanted to do.
No, yeah.
So it's quite nice.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. We used to do like cabarets and things like that in the Charlie's bar,
Oh, nice.
and then also in the, going back a bit, like the Roadhouse, when as a drama school and
Yeah.
MMU and things, we used to put on cabarets every year to raise money to raise money for the props and the third year productions. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're good fun. I love a cabaret.
yeah,
It's good.
I'd like to see that film. Yeah, definitely.
Submit it for next year.
Yeah, definitely. Please do. Everyone.
I have made a film. I have made an animation since this, which was a positive outcome of lockdown for me. I lost all my work, blah blah blah, but it gave me 10 months where I just luckily, very luckily, I had a little pocket of savings, and I just worked 10 months on another film, which is to do with a bowerbird and plastic forks.
I saw it. It's really good.
Did you see it?
I've seen it. Yeah, it's great.
Called Takeaway, and I've got another idea, but I don't know quite how I'm going to manage it in terms of time, because I don't find it's just me, and I've got another idea that I've had for about maybe 20 years, which is how it works in me, which was, well, in fact I can't tell you what the idea is because I feel that I might break the magic a bit, but so I don't quite, but the last one I've made, this one called Takeaway with plastic forks, I'd like to work into an installation with that person was the musician is a celloist and a double bass player, and we've kind of talked about doing something a bit more of an installation thing, which would be more
Like live performance mixed with the...
mixed performance with, I don't quite know what, but somehow something live, because we worked together in a very live way when we were making the film. Who knows? Yeah.
Me, I should have been thinking of my answer, shouldn't I? We're working on a couple of projects at the minute. That film we sort of thought about as kind of creative non-fiction sort of thing. So, and it's quite fresh for us. So we only finished it early this summer. So it's only just doing its rounds. And like you folks have been working on stuff for a long time. But I'm doing some work with the North Yorkshire Moors at the minute as well, doing a thing about justice for space, spatial justice. Everybody has a right to be outdoors, kind of thing, and access. And it's going to be part funded by the North Yorkshire Moors National Park Authority, and sort of as a tourism thing. But in addition, I'm doing some stuff with a documentarian who made a film about Rab Carrington, you know, the Rab clothing brand, about women in mountaineering. So it's going to be more documentary stuff. But I want to keep working with the archive. So the North Yorkshire Moors thing's going to be archival and filmed footage, but the mountain climbing thing's going to be talking heads and climbing doc stuff, really. But still social issues, you know, women in climbing, ecological justice, outdoor space and stuff like that.
Yeah, it sounds great. North Yorkshire, most beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely.